everyone, thanks for joining me again. Excuse me if I rush through this, it's baking hot up in the studio here. But if I have the windows open, the traffic noise is just unbearable. So I'm going to try and do this video without sweating away. So you'll have gathered by now that I've been preparing for the Woods in the Woods. Although in this kind of weird thing that happens with timing YouTube videos, that event will have already happened. It'll have been maybe as much as a month ago by the time this video actually comes out. So that's a bit of a weird thing. I hope it went well. I hope it was exciting. But what I've done here is I've collected together a bunch of my bits of scenery. Some of these are new bits that I've just kind of bodged together. Some of them are very old bits. If you've got Secrets of Shandisholm, the first Woods book, a lot of these were made for that book. And so they've been moved around quite a lot, handled quite a lot, gamed with quite a lot. They're in a bit of a sorry state. So I'm going to be trying to dress them up and make them look a bit pretty. And I never mind adding to and tidying up bits of scenery over time, because when something's made and it's new and it's fresh and it's pristine, that's fine. But I like terrain pieces to have a lot of different textures on them, a lot of stuff going on, and quite often when I sit down to make terrain, I don't have enough time to be adding layers and layers and layers of stuff. I don't have weeks to sit down and make a terrain board. I'll try and get it done in a few hours. So they don't have that kind of level of detail on them. So when I get to sort of snazzing something up and revisiting something and redressing it a bit later, that's an opportunity to add a bit more in the way of layers, a bit more texture, a bit more detail to these things. So I don't mind going back and revisiting them. So Secrets of Shandisholm had a terrain article for making hedges and things in various ways, trying to capture the spirit of those old White Dwarf articles that did much the same thing. And in there I mentioned this hedge that is using lichen or lichen, depending on how you want to say it. And you can see now there's not a lot of that left. Well, maybe you can't see, but take it from me, there's not a lot of that left. And what there is on here is a little bit floppy. So one thing that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting some wire into here to add a sort of wire frame support, and then I'm going to be sticking some more lichen onto there. These resin cast dry stone walls that I did, some of them have got a bit knocked away, so I've stuck them back onto the bases, and I'm going to be building up a bit more of the flock and texture and terrain around the outside of those. These tree bases, some of them are made up of really cheap, Chinese buy bag of 50 of them for £1, really unenvironmentally sound, horrible plastic trees with really unconvincing trunks and really bright shiny plastic flocking on them. So I'm going to be daubing glue all over those and adding some new flock on the top to make them not look quite so shiny and to make them look a little bit more convincing and at least conceal the trunks within them. Some of them are more convincing sort of wire-framed trees, but some of them are losing their foliage a little bit, so I need to pluck off the loose bits, and they'll go into making bushes at the feet. And then once I've plucked off the loose bits, I need to add some little highlight flock on top, because they're all one colour at the moment, and it's fine, but it looks a bit monotone. So I'll be doing that. I'll be tidying up the edges of these bases. A lot of these bases, what I've done is I've used a coffee stirrer or a tongue depressor, actually I think technically tongue depressors. And so I'm going to be gluing around the edge here to try and disguise that, because it's quite obvious when it's on the tabletop. I've not noticed it so much when gaming, because you're not really worried about getting down to eye level, but I have noticed when I take photographs for promotional stuff that the edges of these are really noticeable. So I normally end up scattering a load of scatter terrain, flock and things around the outside to disguise it. I'm going to stick some of those on for Woods in the Woods, so they're all kind of blended into the tabletop. And I've got my sort of selection of bits here. So I've got my regular for general basing. I did a video on how I do bases, so go back and find it. But this is just as much scatter material as I can get to add bits of grit and detail. So this is a blend of green tea and black tea and coffee grounds, which is what I use for my basing. I've got some dark clump sponge foliage from Model Tree Shop. Lots of Model Tree Shop static grass scatters. This is my, you'll remember this from my basing video, this is my box of, or tub of bits that have fallen off other things. So whenever I sort of shake down a piece of terrain to get the loose stuff off, it all goes in here. So I can pick up a clump of this and know that I've already got a nice mix of static grasses and different coloured flocks and different textures in there that I can add on. What else have I got? Bags of lichen. These bags of, what do they call it? Clump, they call this clump foliage. It's kind of like fabric-y, like felty material with flock stuck onto it. I use this for doing my big tree commissions that I did last year. So I did a video on that. There, can't speak video on that. Check that out if you want to see me use these a bit more thoroughly. But I'm going to be using these to tart up some of my own trees, because my trees, they're down there on the floor currently, but they have been also carried around places and not stored particularly delicately and bundled into the back of cars and things. So they are in a bit of a sorry state, so I will need to give those a bit of a dressing up as well. And some of these that are new, I've managed to stick this to the car. Some of these that are completely new bases, so I need to do all the groundwork from the start on there. And basically I'm just throwing loads of PVA at this. The trees are stuck in with either with hot glue or with super glue, depending on, and in a lot of cases both, depending on which is the more suitable for the time. For applying the flock and bits and pieces around it, I've got a big pot of thick, as it comes out of the tub, just regular. This is a B&Q PVA. There you go, B&Q PVA. Wouldn't normally go to B&Q, it's a bit too expensive for what I normally do, but that's what I've got. So that for sticking on the thicker foliage and initial layers of foliage, and then some diluted sort of 50-50 stuff for brushing on afterwards to help set everything in place. And for the stuff where I'm starting groundwork from the ground up, as it were, I'm doing the same thing as I do with bases. So I'm going with this is a pigmented PVA glue, so it's about, actually I don't know, it's probably about 80% glue, 20% paint, but I just sort of mix it as I go, and the PVA dries transparent, so it just gives it a bit of extra colour, a bit of extra weight. Means that it doesn't look quite so much like a tongue depressor, a bit quicker. And I've just got a selection of brushes here, so I've got my biggest, grottiest brushes. I've got quite a nice soft one here, a big soft brush for putting on the diluted PVA, so that I can sort of splodge it and it will sink into the surface. But for the rest, I'm just splodging big chunks on, so the crappiest, biggest, stippliest brushes that I could find, which is why this is really nice and therapeutic. You just like get really sticky. I've put mats down on the surface here so that my gaming table is not getting covered in glue, but basically I'm going to get covered in scatter material because I'm just going to be gluing and sticking bits on here, bits on there, grabbing a bit from there, shaking a bit from here. It's lots of fun. I like this. So this is going to be a fun afternoon. I'll just show you quickly as well, before I finish. I'm sure I'll put pictures, or will have already put pictures of this up on Facebook and Instagram. I've been doing some little objective markers because I remembered playing a couple of test games with friends over the last couple of weeks, so that I can remember what the rules are to this game that I wrote. And believe me, I don't always remember what the rules are to this game that I wrote. I have since realised we've played a couple of things wrong, so it's a good job we played them, because I have gone back and looked and I'm like, that seems a bit weird, that seems a bit odd. Is that really how it is? No, it's not. No, yeah, it's right. It's fine. It's all good. But the creator was playing it wrong. That's why. But anyway, I realised that we need some objective markers. So it's 3 objective markers is the most that any objective calls for. So I've got a little clump here of objective markers, 3 for each player to use on the day. So I need to paint those up and get those textured as well. So that's going to be a fun afternoon, getting thoroughly messy and gluey and stuck to things. I thoroughly recommend it. have your own go getting thoroughly covered in stickiness, and I shall see you next week.